Yamunatira vanachari Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Mr. Paramahansa, Paramahansa, Ashtoto to the Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Paramahansa, Ashtoto to the Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Janardhan Das, before you make yourself comfortable, can you please take the wireless mic out of the closet? I left it there for a purpose, and you're the only one I can see who can monitor it. And when we have the questions, you have to walk around and give it to people. Until we... You understand? You understand? I think you understand. Until we get the other mic, which is a little better, but not much. Okay, let's see where we are. We're at the 6th of August. Okay. This is coming up here. Actually, for this thing, this flat one is better. Krishna. Okay. So actually, best thing to do is to go here. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 5th day of August, 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from the Sri Upadeshamrita, the Nectar of Instruction, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are continuing to explore text number 1. We'll read the Sanskrit and the English translation, and then go to the place in the purport where we are. Okay. Vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam Jihva vegam ododopasta vegam Etan vegan yovashaheta dira Sarvam api mam pratabing sashishyat Api mam pratabing sashishyat. Okay, before we continue, can you open that door a little more? Get a little more air. Thank you. Yeah, just open it back. Yes. Thank you. Vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam Jihva vegam ododopasta vegam Etan vegan yovashaheta dira Sarvam api mam pratabing sashishyat. Go ahead, Guru. Vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam Jimba vegam ododopasta vegam Etan vegan yovashaheta dira Sarvamapi mam pratabingsa shishyat. Vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam. Jihva vegam arodopastha vegam. Etan vegan yo vishahita dhira. Sarvamapi mam pratabingsa shishyat. Vacho vegam hanasakrodha vegam. Jihva vegam arodopastha vegam. Etan vegan yopashaheta dira. Sarvamapi mam pratabingsa shishyat. Damodar. Vacho vegam hanasakrodha vegam. Jihva vegam arodopastha vegam. Etan vegan yopashaheta dira. Sarvamapi mam pratabingsa shishyat. Vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam. Jihva vegam arodopastha vegam. Etan vegan yo vishahita dhira. Sarvamapi mam pratabingsa shishyat. Vacho vegam hanasakrodha vegam. Jihva vegam arodopastha vegam. Etan vegan yo vishahita dhira. Sarvamapi mam pratabingsa shishyat. A sober person. What? Again? Okay. I'm sorry, I actually turned this off. Translation. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. And we'll pick up our purport where Srila Prabhupada is speaking about the agitations of the flickering mind. As for the agitations of the flickering mind, they are divided into two categories. The first is called aviroda priti, or unrestricted attachment, and the other is called viroda yukta krodha, anger arising from frustration. Adherence to the philosophy of the Mayavadis, belief in the fruitive results of the Karmavadis, and belief in plans based on materialistic desires are called aviroda priti. Jnanis, karmis, and materialistic plan makers generally attract the attention of conditioned souls. But when the materialists cannot fulfill their plans and when their devices are frustrated, they become angry. Frustration of material desires produces anger. So, just to discuss, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chukshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So these are different vegas. Vegas are urges that are produced just by what we have within ourselves. The urge to speak, the mind's demands, the urges of anger, which you can see also is a result of the mind's demands. And then the physical demands of the belly, the tongue, belly, and genitals. So Prabhupada, according to the following the Acharyas, he has these two divisions of the agitations of the flickering mind. Aviroda priti, unrestricted attachment. So that's the actual beginning of our entanglement in the material world, is kama. And when prema becomes contaminated by the modes of nature, it turns into kama. So that's why it's so strong, because prema is so powerful for Krishna. But when that's turned to the material energy, that becomes this unrestricted desire. And has unlimited categories. According to the body we're in, the species we're in, we have a certain set of objects that are attracted to us. Now human beings, most animals, they have one sense that's most prominent. or maybe two, like the dog is the hearing and the smelling, you know. Prabhupada would point out the fish, how do you capture the fish? Well, with some lure or some bait. The tongue is very, very powerful, and they get captured. The elephant by the conjugal attraction, sex attraction. You have a female elephant like that. So, but human beings, we have all of our senses very active and powerful, so we're at a disadvantage in that sense. And then when there's frustration, which there inevitably is, because of material desire is unlimited, but our ability to enjoy it is very limited. So naturally there's frustration, and we get this viroda yukta krota, which means anger, frustration, anxiety. So these are the two sides of what happens when we simply yield to the desires of the mind, which are of course completely tied in with the senses. So this is going on. So the point is, these have to be controlled. When a dira, this phrase dira appears in the original verse. Vishaheta dira. Vishaheta means who can tolerate them and be sober. Now the only way to tolerate them, clearly, is through developing one's Krishna consciousness. Because the Krishna consciousness draws us to Krishna. So at least there's like a spectrum. And some of those strong desires are directed toward Krishna, and soon we find that those desires are diminishing. If you don't feed it, it won't flare up. So this is the sadhana bhakti, and the famous verse is so illuminating. Vishaya vinivartandete daharasya dehinak rasa vardhamasopyasya padam dishyandavartate. The impersonalists, the Mayavadis, the siddhi yogis, and others, they try to just repress the desires. But eventually they come out. As Sanat Kumara was teaching Maharaj Prithu, this verse Prabhupada loved to quote, Yatpada pankata palasha valasa bhaktya karmashayam gotita budgatayanti santa. Sometimes these strong desires in the mind are likened to knots that tie us to this material world. So this verse says that the devotees who are relishing the pleasure of serving the tips of the toes of the lotus feet of Krishna, they can, the knots in those in their hearts are completely untied or cut. Gratitam udgratayanti. The gratis, the knots are udgratayanti type. But others, whether they're karmis, gyanis, yogis, whoever may be, whose minds are devoid of bhakti, they may repress those desires for some time, as we see in the stories of the Bhagavatam, great yogis for years and years on end, practicing severe austerities we can't even imagine, and not engaging in any kind of sense gratification. But some obstacle will come down, or we'll see some fish copulating, or something will happen, and suddenly the whole repressed desires just blow up, and down they go, you know. But the devotees, if you param drishra navartate, they describe it. You can repress, but the taste remains. Rasavardham rasobhyasa. But even the taste becomes lost when one sees or experiences directly the absolute truth, which is what bhakti does. As soon as you chant Hare Krishna, you're directly associated with Krishna. When you see the deity, when you do some service, when you participate in these festivals, you're directly contacting Krishna, and Krishna from within the heart is purifying those desires. So that's, but still, there's a point where you have to tolerate. That's the thing. So that has to come first. Okay, any questions on the flickering, the agitations of the flickering mind? And then he's going to move off to, yes, Balaram. Yeah. Thank you.
I was going to mention that. Yes, so Prabhupada mentions about, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions...
Which you're going to read in a couple of...
yeah.
Part of the purport.
Oh yeah, he does that Shari. So he says that the tongue is most ferocious and uncontrollable, right? And then Prabhupada mentions that, if you can control the tongue, then, okay, the belly and the genitals are there and you can control. But sometimes, I was just thinking about like the nature of lust, or the nature of, not lust like broad, but like sexual desires, that it doesn't seem that it's always depending on, like, in other words, someone like you just gave those examples of those yogis, they were controlling their tongue.
Yeah, yeah.
But so what I'm saying is that it always doesn't depend on that controlling
In other words, you may have a very controlled tongue, but still...
Yeah, exactly. You may have a controlled tongue, but still that lust is still there. So I'm just wondering if you could comment on the, the nature of it and how it arises, and just how to get rid of it, and kind
You're
of...
talking about the sex desire.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well...
I mean, it's a complicated thing.
First of all, everybody's an individual. It's not that everyone has an equal amount of that built in. There's a certain that to do with karma, and but it's true that the kind of foods you eat obviously is going to affect that, the quantity and the kind of foods you eat. So a sattvic diet helps certainly, and the quantity is very important because there is a direct line. There's no question about it. But at the same time, the state of your body, the age you're at, does have an effect. We know this famous story where the king asked his minister, how long does this sex desire last? And he said, up to the age of death. He didn't believe him, And so then eventually there was some old guy dying who had a beautiful young daughter. Said, okay, go and visit him and you'll see, he's looking at the daughter. So it's going to be there. For the materialists, it lasts in some state or another, the whole lifetime. But what is our strategy? How does it work for devotees? How do we transcend it, or rather sublimate that sex desire most efficiently? So it's not just a question of the tongue. There is that element to it that if you are uncontrolled in your eating the kinds of food, even if it's vegetarian food, even prasadam, if it's it can affect your agitation, as we like to call it, kind of euphemistically. So, well, nobody out there says, oh, he's agitated, and someone knows, oh yeah, he's sex desire. It's okay. I was Prabhupada's term. But the real way in which you transcend it is to stay absorbed in Krishna consciousness and using your mind and your senses in Krishna's service, and not the obvious things of looking. You can't help seeing women half dressed here. This is not. Objectively speaking, the ideal place for a brahmacharya ashram. 2 blocks from the beach, Southern California, but still. That doesn't matter. If you're intensely Krishna conscious, you're chanting, you'll see it and look away. And what I see is just, you can't help seeing it, but then it's just a bag. Logically speaking, it's almost like a Buddhist thing. The Buddhists they encourage them to see the skeleton within, visualize it. You can do that. Immediately cuts off the attraction. So there are various techniques. But the point is, don't dwell on it. Immediately call out to Krishna. Fill your mind with Krishna. Pray hard, and learn nectar shlokas. That's my own thing. But that's nothing but simply absorbing yourself in very attractive Krishna katha. If you're fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, you're not fully absorbed, but you're doing your best. Then Krishna is Madana Mohan. What does that name mean? It means he who bewilders Cupid. In other words, he'll conquer Cupid for you, and you'll be safe. We've all have experience. You go out on Harinam. We used to go downtown, but wherever you go in the modern city, especially in the evening, and usually we like to go with a lot of people. That means that, there's going to be young men and women there, and. Sometimes it's shocking. I remember there was a New Year's Harinam a few years ago. And New Year's, there's huge crowds down there, much more than any other, even more than Comic-Con. They wouldn't even let us stop, because as soon as you stop, people gather, because they're looking for any kind of, and we got a good beat, and they'll like to dance, and they block the whole sidewalk, so the cops would say, you got to keep moving. So moving. We come on one of our regular corners there, and there's 3 or 4 women, and just from the first glance, which is all I gave it, he looked to be completely unclothed. I mean, whatever she was wearing was not covering much of anything. And I said, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. But it had no, it didn't get past just the perceptive phase, because immediately say Hari Bol. It's just like what is that example? Anyway, there's so many things, Haridas Thakur, because he's always on the transcendental level. But it doesn't have a chance, especially you're in a group there, it's Harinam. There's no question of it. It just doesn't. So the idea is to keep yourself absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Now, what can you do? You're going to fall asleep, you're going to have, dreams. I mean, it's part of what's happening in the body, Well, then, you don't do what the Manu Samhita says. I'm not going to tell you what that. That's not. We don't do everything the Manu Samhita says, but you just go on with your life, with your morning program, chanting Hare Krishna, and trying to not eat at night, do all the techniques, and then that's the best you can do, and you just get older, and after a while it stops, because you're not feeding it. But the problem is if you surrender to it, and then it creates a vritti in the mind, and it's much harder to control. But that's part of what the Dharma, and then the advantages are, of actually following these principles and living in an ashram, is that you have so much more time and opportunity to worship the deity. When we come before and we're doing our Mangalarti, that's our deity worship. I mean, there's a few lucky souls who get on the altar. But the rest of us, to see the deity with great attention and devotion and offer prayers, I mean, that's invaluable. And so that's my take on the matter. There's various things we could quote, but it's possible. It's harder, of course, when you're a young man, but to get over that, and without surrendering to it, and throwing in the towel, that's impossible. It's not impossible. One is on the safer side. Yeah.
When you say young man, because I heard that many times over the years, like devotees say, and I'm not saying it's like wrong. I never talk with like a physician or something, like a doctor, and they said, oh yeah, because you mentioned how an old man, he could also materialistic man.
Materialist, they're always agitated.
But devotees mention this about when you're a young man, it's you're more whatever, the hormones are more going, or you're more
back to life.
And I'm just wondering about that particular age frame, like what is it?
Like I say,
12 to 35.
Is it a mystery to us? Like I say, everybody's an individual.
Yeah.
Some my god brothers, they got married as young men, and then it didn't work out, and they felt they had to get married again, and this and that, and even into middle age and old age. It's more than just a physical thing. There's a psychological attraction that develops, that is subtle sex, which could be a powerful thing. So, but it's a fact that if you can remain staunch, in your younger years, then that's why generally sannyas means, okay, you're 50. For emergency's sake, we had Prabhupada gave sannyas to young men, but we saw most of them had a problem. But generally, it's like Prabhupada did. He was just showing an example. In his later age, and his children had grown, and that whole thing, But even without having any children, it's just a fact that if you don't engage in it, then the fire will be tamped, and it won't be as distracting when you get older. I'm speaking from my own experience.
So when you say like a young man, is that like what, like past under 40, or is that where you're?
Well, that's yeah. The height of it, is like 16 to 35. I guess. Mm-hmm. But depending on the individual, it can go beyond that. Especially if you're a materialist.
Yeah.
And in this age, the whole culture is geared toward agitating you. You can buy some orange or something, and there's a beautiful lady selling it.
Yeah.
Come on. It's very degrading, you know, and it becomes more degrading by the day. Now there's this whole thing with robots. I mean, I don't want to talk about it, think about it. Robots. You didn't know about sex robots? Oh, yeah. You know. It's horrible. I mean, it's just like madness, you know. But that's the, you know, why you know, spend all this money, you know, talking to them and everything, just have this sex robot. Crazy.
Yeah, it's weird.
Let's chant Hare Krishna and be happy.
Maybe you could share that verse with us from the 11th canto. I was just reading the other day about the devotees, they get together and they share katha with each other, and in this way they're able to give up the misery.
Right. Balaram Prabhu is referring to the verse from the 9 Yogendras. It's not the first one, I forget which one it is in the names. But it's the series that has Tasmat Gurum Papadya Jigaju Shreya Uttamam. The whole series starts out with a three-verse proof that no one can ever be happy in this material world. He starts out, I won't give you the Sanskrit, I'm going to probably forget some of it. But he says one should understand, the person who's wise and, you know, perceptive, could see that people get together, human beings, talking about human beings, people get together for hoping for happiness. Everybody's doing it, you know. Centered on sex and expansion and so forth. But one should understand that eventually you get just the opposite. There's all kinds of problems and misery and everything. And especially in this society, where there's no holes barred, you know, and marriage has probably, very wisely said, has become practically imagination in human society. Why get married? We don't believe in God, you know. And so it's just based on sex, exactly as predicted in the 12th canto, that men and women will get together just based on the sex attraction, which is very ephemeral, you know. It doesn't, at one point, it doesn't, it's not new anymore. And then there's some other people. So in this world, that's the basis of happiness, generally, family life based on sex life, so it produces misery. So let's go to the heavenly planets, you know. So then he says, and that's the same thing up there. There's all this rivalry. It's temporary, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So you can't be permanently happy there. You can't have Shreya. Shreya means the ultimate good, you know. There's always a fly in the ointment, and basically it's caused by time. You know. So then he says, therefore, if you want Shreya, Jigyashu Shreya Uttamam, the ultimate good, you have to approach a guru. What's the definition? Shabde Parecha Nishnatam Brahmanu Bhashamashim. Prabhupada quoted this verse 100 times. Is fixed in the Shastra, the Vaishnava Shastra, Shabde and Pare. Pare is the shorthand for the Supreme Personality of God. And completely free, which you can see over time from all these bogus yogis eventually show they're not free of material desire. You know, completely free of material desire and completely fixed in the absolute truth and in the Shastras. Then what do? You learn, you surrender, you learn the process of devotional service. And after a few verses of describing that, in the context of ancient times, which is more, you know, strict ashram and more austerities than we do, but basically the same thing. And then he has these verses. How do devotees relate to each other? That's what he says. What do we do? Parasparanu katanam pavanam bhagavadyasha mito ratir mitastustir nivrita mitalatmana. And this completely pertains to us. Parasparanu katanam is what Krishna describes in the Gita. That how do devotees act? Matchitta magatapana bodhiyantak parasparam. You mutually get together and you glorify the Lord whose glories are completely purifying. Pavanam means to purify. What do you say? Patita pavana. It's actually he who purifies the fallen, and that purification delivers them. That's why we say it's the deliverer of the most fallen. So pavana bhagavadyasha, the glories of Bhagavan, Krishna. And what's the result? Mito hratir, they develop attraction between each other. Genuine spiritual relationship on the basis of Krishna consciousness. And so mito ratir, mitos tushtir, mutually satisfying each other by reminding each other of Krishna. And mutually strengthening each other's detachment from sex life and other things. Oh, that's pertaining to this. Then the next verse continues with this theme. He says, Smarantyak smarayantyascha Smaranchak Maranachancha Yasho Gaugaharam Harim. Thus reminding each other of Hari, who destroys all your sin, and remembering him at the same time. If I'm reminding you of Krishna by telling you a verse, I'm also remembering at the same time. This is why Prabhupada, all he did was write and speak, and try to hand out BTGs. And when he came to America, he did the same thing. That writing of Krishna is like a super ecstatic experience when you're on that platform. The intellect is involved, and you're helping others. You know, it's directly, completely in tune with Lord Chaitanya's desires. Writing, publishing, distributing, speaking. Right? So that's what he's talking about. Smaranchak smarayanchascha yasho gaugaharam harim. And the result is bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. It's a famous line, which means bhakti only comes from bhakti. So this is saying this kind of bhakti, which is sadhana bhakti. What we're doing now is sadhana bhakti, right? And that produces bhava bhakti. So the bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya, it produces bhava bhakti. Which, and then he says, and your hair stands, and then he gives a few more examples. So that's what we should do. That's the great advantage of living in the ashram, where we have structured times when we get together and glorify Krishna together, and in our spare time, you know, we can just. I remember this one devotee. What's his name now? God, I forget the name. This was when I was in L.A. He would always have a little, you know, no devices in those days. He had a little bag, and in the bag was a book, mostly Nectar Devotion. And he would walk around and he would see the devotee kind of, you know, maybe not completely engaged. He said, Prabhu, you want to hear? Rip out the Nectar Devotion. And he'd read you a little section. So enlivening, you know, and you go off thinking about that, you know, like that. And that keeps you above the modes, you know. So that's what he's talking about. All right, now, let me go on to the demands of the body, which we also were dealing with. Similarly, demands of the body can be divided into three categories: demands of the tongue, the belly, and the genitals. One may observe that these three senses are physically situated in a straight line as far as the body is concerned, and that the bodily demands begin with the tongue. If one can restrain the demands of the tongue by limiting its activities to the eating of prasadam, the urges of the belly and the genitals can automatically be controlled in this connection. In this connection, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, we can all sing together, Shadara Vijajao. All right, let's see if we can do it in unison. Shadara Vijajao Jadendra Hetaikao Jive Pele Vishaya Sagare Tarmadye Jivayati Lobha Moya Sudurmati Take Jeta Katina Sangsare Krishna Baradaya Karibare Jifmajoy Swapasad Dilobhai Se Anamita Pao Radha Krishna Gunagao Premedako Chaitanya Nitai. O Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of paths leading to death. Somehow or other we have fallen into the ocean of material sense enjoyment, and of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. It is very difficult to control the tongue in this world, but you, dear Krishna, are very kind to us. You have sent this nice prasadam to help us conquer the tongue. Therefore, let us take this prasadam to our full satisfaction and glorify your lordships, Shri Shri Radha and Krishna, and in love call for the help of Lord Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda. There are 6 kinds of rasas or tastes, and if one is agitated by any one of them, he becomes controlled by the urges of the tongue. Some persons are attracted to eating meat, fish, crabs, eggs, and other things produced by semen and blood and eaten in the form of dead bodies. Sounds pretty exciting. Ooh, I want some of that. Others are attracted by eating vegetables, creepers, spinach, or milk products, but all for the satisfaction of the tongue's demands. Such eating for sense gratification, including the use of extra quantities of spices like chili and tamarind, is to be given up by Krishna-conscious persons. The use of pan, hataka, I don't know what that is, betel nuts, various spices used in pan making, tobacco, LSD, marijuana, opium, liquor, coffee, and tea, is indulged in to fulfill illicit demands. If we can practice accepting only remnants of food offered to Krishna, it's possible to get free from Maya's victimization. Vegetables, grains, fruits, milk products, and water are proper foods to offer to the Lord, as Lord Krishna himself prescribes. Altogether, patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya payachati tadaham bhaktu paritam ashnami payatam namaha. Lord Chaitanya taught us to avoid very palatable dishes even while eating prasadam. If we offer palatable dishes to the deity with the intention of eating such nice food, we are involved in trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. If we accept the invitation of a rich man with the idea of receiving palatable food, we are also trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya 62227, it is stated, and he's speaking to Raghunath Das Goswami, Jivara ladase ye iti uti dai, Shishno dada parayana, Krishna nahi pai. That person who runs here and there seeking to gratify his palate and who is always attached to the desires of his stomach and genitals is unable to attain Krishna. So it's supposed to be Narayana Parayana. Zachary, what does that mean? Narayana Parayana. Anyone know what this word Parayana means? Come on, help us there. Huh? Absorbed and dedicated to. So here's Shishno Dada Parayana. Dedicated and absorbed in the genitals and the belly. So, therefore what she said, do not dress luxuriously and do not eat delicious foods. Those who suffer from diseases of the stomach must be unable to control the urges of the belly, at least according to this analysis. When we desire to eat more than necessary, we automatically create many inconveniences in life. However, if we observe fasting days like Ekadashi and Janmashtami, we can restrain the demands of the belly. There's a passage in the first canto where Prabhupada is he's listing things that he recommends for society. And one is fasting at least 2 days a month, and perhaps 4. He mentions 4 possibly. I mean, weekly, obviously. Which will not only help one's health, but also be very economical. You can, if you do 1 day a week, that's 14% less money you got to spend on food, which is pretty significant. But just consider the 2 days a month. And what got me into why we especially remembered this, of course, we recommended to fast on Ekadashi, is that he's also touting the health benefits of giving the body a rest at least one day every couple of weeks. That's good for you on that level. And if you can fast, water fast, start with a water fast. It's a mind thing. It's not really the body. That I gotta have food. The body can do without food for a day. We're designed, that way. But it's very helpful on many different levels, especially if you can do it on Ekadashi. So. All right, one more, and then if there's any questions. As far as the urges of the genitals are concerned, there are 2, proper and improper, or legal and illicit. When a man is properly mature, he can marry according to the rules and regulations of the Shastras and use his genitals for begetting nice children. That is legal and religious. Otherwise, he may adopt many artificial means to satisfy the demands of the genitals, and he may not use any restraint. When one indulges in illicit sex, as defined by the Shastras, either by thinking, planning, talking about, or actually having sexual intercourse, or by satisfying the genitals by artificial means, he is caught in the clutches of Maya. These instructions apply not only to householders, but also to tyagis, or those who are in the renounced order of life. In his book Prema Vivarta, chapter 7, Sri Jagadananda Pandit says, I'm not going to read all this Bengali, I'll read one verse. Vairagi bhai gramya kata na shunibe kane, gramya varta na kahibe yabe miliba ane. My dear brother, you are in the renounced order of life, and should not listen to talk about ordinary worldly things, nor should you talk about worldly things when you meet with others. Do not think of women, even in dreams. You have accepted the renounced order of life with a vow that forbids you to associate with women. If you wish to associate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you must always remember the incident of Sota Haridas and how he was rejected by the Lord. Do not eat luxurious dishes or dress in fine garments, but always remain humble and serve their lordships, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, in your heart of hearts. Okay, we'll begin there next time. But before we end, this is another advantage. There's a nice reason for this. Let me just get this together. I'm sorry. Okay. And this thing of like dressing in simply in loose clothing, in tight clothing is agitating. All this tight clothing, loose clothing, simple clothing, shaving your head. It's a sign. It makes you feel I'm not in the game anymore. I'm not trying to make myself attractive. And the others also, the ladies out there, they get the message. This guy's not, I'm going to try to attract him. So it helps. All of it helps. And we need all the help we can get. It's a kind of a science. Especially, not seeing, not hearing. Well, where's the attraction going to come from? Plus, hearing of the dangers of it. Like, I love this verse from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and we'll end here. He wrote this song. What is it called? Godruma Bhajanopadesh? You know that one? Godruma Kanana Kunjavidam. So, one of the verses is like his brahmachari verse. It's for all of us. Ramani jana sangu sukham chasake chadame bhayadam purushata haram harinama sudara samatta mati bhata godama kanana kunjavidam. Did I teach you this one? I tried to. So, here's a Ramani. Oh, Ramani, young girls. Jana, the young girls. Ramani jana sanga sukham. The happiness that comes from associating with young girls, oh friend. Chadame bhayadam eventually produces great fear and steals away the goal of life. Chadame bhayadam purusha artha haram. Makes you completely forget about the goal of life. Look around you. You can see it. Instead of that, he gives the solution in the third line. Harinama sudhara samatta matir. Make your mind mad and intoxicated with the mellows of Harinam Sankirtan. And in this way, worship Lord Chaitanya, the moon of Godrumadvip, Navadvip. So it's very practical. If you're in the throes, if you will, you call them that, or the midst of a big kirtan, absorbed in the holy name, dancing and chanting, there's no way that sex desire is going to come. At that point, you're immune. And this is how this movement started. Barbara had all these young hippies and girls and boys, but they did like 6 hours of Harimam every day. And in that way, they were becoming detached, even from the young bhakti chanting and dancing next to you. It was practical. It actually happened that way. And that is still, to this day, the engine of this movement is the congregational chanting of the holy name. And especially with the dancing. Dancing is important. It engages all your senses. It's a science. Lord Chaitanya's blessing. So the movement is based on that. If you read these things and you don't have any experience or understanding of how chanting the holy name can really enable you to control this, it just sounds impossible. And the most amazing thing is when we printed this, I was there when we first printed this, Prabhupada was on the planet, I think 76, something like that. We figured, before, we asked Prabhupada how many wanted to print, but everyone was saying, well, he's going to want like 5,000, maybe 10,000 maximum. It's just for devotees, obviously, right? No, print them 100,000 and send them out on the street. Probably inconceivable. But that's, this is the conclusion here. So this first verse has two dimensions. One is, it's very instructive for us, obviously, and that's the way Prabhupada is writing it. But when you think of the verse, one who can control these completely, you can take initiation from him. He's actually defining the observable, things about the guru. If someone, and you look at one after another, all of these other bogus yogis who came to America, it doesn't matter who they were. Eventually they said, oh my goodness, he had some affair with his young secretary or something. And we all know, it's not the gross out, meat-eating girls who can attract your mind. It's the very self-controlled and svelte, vegan yogis, bhakti yogins. Yeah. So, but the point is, you can be safe if you follow these instructions that have been given to us, and learn these verses. There's numerous ones in the Bhagavatam that are just like shelter for the brahmacharis. Punksa, you really want to get married, Prabhu? Punksosya metuni bhava metan Rishabdev. He describes all. So it begins with the sex desire, then attraction, home, family, wealth, and you have to worry about money, and oh God. Better to try to avoid it if possible. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.